I'm going to be quick on the history of the family and the Domaine de la Solitude, because you already have a lot of historical facts about Châteauneuf-du-Pape. But just to say a few words, we are there since 4th century, so it's a bit of time, 15 generations at least. And we live right in La Solitude since this time. You know, in France, when you move far from your house, like 10 kilometers is like really far. We don't really cross the country between generations. Some generations were more clever than others. So the winery is really in La Solitude since the 60th century. And in the 1780, we were one of the first winery in the world to do marketing. So we actually make this nice label. And I really think, more I look at it, more I think I need to do a special cuvée with this label, Vin de la Solitude. We were also one of the first winery to export wine. So on the next slide, you have this nice invoice. We were shipping wine in 1820 to London, 110 Franchurch Street. So the wine was shipped by barrel, and the price by barrel was great. Chivric, my importage, really enjoys that. 90 shilling by barrel, good price. And yes, that's the family. So that's really my grandfather, the man with the hat and the jacket, who come back from Paris when he gets retired and get back on the winery and really make it, work again. Because previously, there was just some people who was taking care of the winery, but they were just producing on 32 hectares, like 20 barrels of wine by year. So everything went a little bit down. So on the other side of the picture, you have my grandfather. So he's the one who really made me want to come back on the winery. He's dead now, but he was the one who bring La Solitude at the place where La Solitude is now. And that is an important person for me. So yes, my grandfather was a funny guy because he decided we were Premier Grand Cru, but there is no Grand Cru in Châteauneuf. So we have stopped that, but that was also Clos de la Solitude, because we own all the Lieux de la Solitude, so we can be Clos, but we cannot be Grand Cru. But of course we have a great terroir, I know, but so that's the wineries in just after the Second World War, when my grandgrandfather get back to the winery. And like my father, I'm still working with them, but I'm taking over now more and more. So I have a bit of pressure, because there's 15 generations looking at me, so I have to do it right. Yeah, that's a beautiful vineyard on Acro. You put too many pictures. I'm just so I'm going to talk about the vineyard, because La Solitude it's quite a special vineyard, because we are there since so long time. We own all the land around us, so it's nearly a single piece vineyard of 32 hectares, and most of the time in Châteauneuf, the vineyard are spread all around the appellation, but we are a single piece vineyard, but because we are really on a special place at the end of Lacro, at the end of this very famous terrace, we work with many different types of soil, going from the galets roulés and clay to the sand, and sometimes the soil can change, like every 5 meters square, you have a different type of soil. So even if we have a single piece vineyard, we have two of the different terroirs of Châteauneuf. So that's the map. So you see, I'm going to give a little bit of work to Harry, because
okay, let's try to catch up with this morning. All of you still remember what I told you. So no. No, I'm just kidding. I was talking where I stood actually was at where the terraces were actually built, and that was 100,000 years ago. And I think you need to consider that the highest point in Châteauneuf is just 128 meters. So it's totally different from when you go northern Rhône, you get the steeples, côte-rôtie, heritage, and it's twice as high. So it's really a hilly hillside, you know, and all kind of different slope angles. So the lectures afterwards, they pushed up and they built a terrace. You see that's where Solitude.
I don't know if you can see on the map, but it's on the right, the other left.
So that's where Solitude is very close, you know, it's adjacent to Lançon. And Lançon is a plateau that runs from a little bit south, east, north to, let's say, Montredon. And they have a similar terroir when you go uphill, but it's totally different. When you go deeper, as I told you, you have a lot of limestone. Cobalt limestone is underneath the whole area of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And the good thing about the terroir on Solitude is that it's not one terroir. Like we were talking about the difference, the spots, and that's what Florent will talk about to get a different expression from the vines.
Of the Grenache. So this, get back. I don't know if you can see, but this picture is interesting because it's a very good example. It's an old vineyard of Grenache, but if you look, there is no vine of Grenache. The first one, it's a Senso, the white behind is a Claret Rose, and on this side, it's I think it's a Mourvèdre. So it's a good example of what we call complantation. It's quite unique to Châteauneuf-du-Pape to have a whole vineyard like with 20% of little bit all the grape variety we are allowed to grow, and the rest of Grenache. Yes, at La Solitude, the vineyard we manage now, it's the history of the previous 3 generations. Because just after the Second World War, the weather was a little bit cooler than now, and we get some problem to have a high level of alcohol. So there was a pressure for wine grower, like my grandfather, to put a lot of Grenache, because it's a grape variety, you can rise a high level of alcohol, good ripening, most of the years. And so, at the beginning, the Grenache was the only grape variety nearly we grow. And when my grandfather arrived, the yielding were so low because we just, have only old vine of Grenache. He decided to plant some Senso. So it's why we go up to 20% of Senso. And the next generation, my uncle, he really enjoys Syrah because of the Senso, maybe sometimes we have a lack of color. So he decided to plant more and more Syrah. So he took over some Senso and planted some Syrah. And in the last 20 years, because of the global warming, the Grenache is still going good, the Syrah also, but the Mourvèdre start to be a very interesting grape variety because nearly every vintage, we arrive to get it ripe, so we start to plant more and more Mourvèdre. So in fact, that 60% of Grenache, 15 Syrah, 10 Mourvèdre is really the result of 3 generations of winemaking. Also, you see there is 5% of the other grape variety. I mean, it's just the 5% were spread all around the vineyard. We don't have any single vineyard of Karis, Terre-Noire. There is no vineyard, nearly no vineyard strictly planted with Karis in Châteauneuf, only a few of them. And we'll make a try with Counoise. I know there is some Counoise here, but it's still a young vineyard, and we don't really arrive to produce some great thing with that. I think we need to wait maybe 20, 30 years to arrive to have a good maturity. For the wine, so at La Solitude we have a long history about making wine. We start in the 70s. We nearly never change the quality of grape we use. We always use a lot of Claret because my grandfather was liking really to bring good freshness to balance the ripeness of the Roussanne and the Grenache. And we have a tiny bit of Bourboulin we are using like in the last decade, we decrease a little bit the level of alcohol we get with Grenache, because the problem with super variety in Chateauneuf with Atlas Solitude is ripe at 12 degrees of alcohol. Like you can pick it in December, and there will be still 12 degrees of alcohol. They never change. So often I put it in the red blend. Yes, there is really something that is important to me. It's since I'm working at La Solitude, I really took over all the vineyard, the farming, the vineyard management, and it's really important to be sustainable. So every time when I start to do something new, I really think about is it good or not for the nature. So we have like changed many things. We have been to use a lot of cover crop. We have stopped to use nearly all the herbicides we were using. We do dry farming, of course, like everyone do in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. There is few places where they use irrigation, but it's not allowed. Really, the Solitude was, like the 80s, 90s was a very bad time for the environment everywhere in the world. My grandfather, my father, I really trust in the chemistry. But before to come back on the winery, I've been studying ecology, environmental studying, and for me it's really important. So I decided to change all the practice we had. So we use organic fertilization. We go into Terraviti certification this year. It's not like organic or biodynamic, but it's something in between. It means you use sustainable practice. I just bought 5 beehives to be like an indicator of my practice. I mean, if I don't have to make honey every year, I have done something wrong in my vineyards. It doesn't respect the nature. So my vineyard is basically full of flower, plant, grass. I'm the greenest vineyard of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. You can recognize it. So the winery was built in the 70s by my grandfather. He was an open-minded person because he decided to go from the classic, winemaking process we had in Châteauneuf-du-Pape to macération carbonique because he was friend with Claude Fondy, the one who created the macération carbonique. It's quite unusual for Châteauneuf-du-Pape macération carbonique. He was the first to do it in Châteauneuf, and all the winery was built to be good to do macération carbonique. So that was great because everything was by gravity. So we just have basically one row of tank. We just cut the heel, do one row of tank, and you just have to bring the grape in small cases of 20 kilo on the top of the tank. You don't need any pump, any machine, so it's a great winery, but I decided to make a new one. Like last year, I just destroy everything. But the most difficult now is everything is destroyed, I have to rebuild it. So I hope I will be on time. So yeah, you can see we pick everything by hand in small cases of 20 kilo. Yeah, this one is important. So it's a very simple way of making, wine. Small box of 20 kilo, sort already one time in the vineyard. We bring that to the winery because all the vineyard is around, so it's easy. We sort by hand, that fall down directly into the distemper and crusher and directly into the tank. We don't use a mini machine. classic winemaking since 2000, maybe 99. We stopped with the macération carbonique, and we fill the tank by gravity. We work with most of the time délestage, like we do 10 délestage, and we use a very nice tool called turbo-pijage. I don't know if you know what is it exactly.
No.
It's like a stainless steel tube with a pump at the bottom, and you just dig it into the tank, and that do the same as a remontage. But that took you 3 minutes instead of half an hour of setting all the pump. And so for the weekend, it's very nice because you can do 10 turbo-pijage in 1 hour. It's great too.
Just real quick, délestage. Does everybody know what délestage is? Rack and return.
So we keep separate all our vineyard, and it's why also I'm building a new winery because I want to do more. We keep separate all the variety and most of the vineyard, and after we make the aging. Every variety is aged in different oak or stainless steel or concrete. It's depending on the grape. For the Grenache, most of the time I'm using demi-muit and food. I'm buying more and more new food. For the Syrah, it's aged in new oak, small barrel, and the Mourvèdre also small barrel and new oak and stainless steel tank. Yeah, so it was exactly what I said. 70 to 90, because my grandfather was open-minded, we go through macération carbonique. So basically, macération carbonique is like 25 days. You just put the grape in the tank, you fill it with carbon dioxide, and you wait 25 days, you dig out the tank, you blend the free-range juice with the pressed juice, and you finish the fermentation. It's quite a lazy winemaking. So yes, because my grandfather was open-minded into the macération carbonique, but he was still doing all the aging in old food like we do in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So the 78 you are going to try is macération carbonique and 100% aged in old food with a classic way to age Châteauneuf-du-Pape. But you know, the next generation, my uncle and my father, they like to change things, so they just destroy all the food. So all my chilled out, all my when I was young, all the chimney fire was with the food for the last 20 years, and we did the aging in concrete only. So the 98 you are going to try is it's macération carbonique, only aged in concrete. And yeah, from 98 to 2010, we were doing something like a modern way of winemaking, aging in new oak, doing a lot of délestage, pump over. And what I'm trying to do now is to go on something more natural, so I want to stop to use yeast, enzyme, to maybe buy more food to get, it's funny because it's like a circle. My grandfather was modern, he destroyed all we did in the past, and me, I'm back on something like I want to do like they did 1 century ago. I don't know, and I'm the only one who was studying winemaking at school, so I should be the one who likes the most technique, but I'm the one who really think you have to do it simple and natural. So we are going to try 2 white. Cuvée Barberini is my top cuvée in white. It's mostly made with Roussanne and Clairette, but in the 2004 I was not there, so we put a little bit of white Grenache.
Yeah, 2004 vintage, as I said last, Karis. It was a cooler vintage, late start of actually the bud burst and the flowering, some rain, warm summer, still warm, and average 2,800, so the normal average sun hours, and I think a little bit later harvest in general. But as you can taste, the wine is, especially the older Barbaries, I've been able to taste more of the older Barbaries and the wines who have the potential to age very well to get kind of nuttiness and honey. It sees some new oak, but especially in the beginning when it's young, you can taste it in the other one, and it integrates fully. It's unbelievable balance, also because of the blend, the Rosan.
So basically, the winemaking process is quite simple. We start the fermentation in tank, so we just fill the barrel at half fermentation to avoid any oxidation. And on 2004, we didn't make the malolactic fermentation, but now we make the malolactic fermentation. So in 2004, we just do not rack, do anything on the wine. We fill the wine with the lead for like 6-7 months, do racking, put in a stainless steel tank, add the proper amount of sulfur, and put the bottle in. But since 2007, we start to make the malolactic fermentation on the Roussanne, even if on the paper it's not really a great idea, because we have quite high pH, so do the malolactic on a wine with high pH should not be great, but I think that really helps to integrate the taste of the oak, and really on the palate that doesn't change a lot, you don't feel less freshness, so they give more complexity, and I think that helps the wine to age better, really.
These are wines, I don't know how much white Chateau de Pape you guys have had a chance to drink. I don't know if I may be repeating myself, and I apologize if I am, but normally we drink, depending on the level of oak, if you've got a lot of oak, some of these properties use maybe a hair too much oak in the beginning, but so many of them don't. So what you want to do is you want to drink them young, if they don't have too much oak, for up to about the first 5-6 years. They often go into a funk, they go down and they close down, and they hibernate, and they're really not very interesting. And then all of a sudden they come around after about 10, 11, 12 years and they become stunning. So this is one of those cases where this wine is completely come around to be really interesting. For sommeliers, this is a gem. This is something you want to have a lot of fun with, a lot of food pairings you could go on. And these wines age very, very long time. 2004 for me was a great white vintage. Even better than the red. We just right out of the gun, the 04s, I served them and had a blast with them. I was working in a restaurant at the time. So you can age some white Chateauneufs over 40 years, even 50 years of age. They drink beautifully. We don't think they're going to last, and they do.
If you want to know a little bit more about the white Chateauneuf, I advise you to read a chapter in the book. There is
Is it for sale?
a copy. No, just kidding. Because there is an interest. There has been Chardonnay. He's a famous enologist from Bordeaux. Thank you, Stefan. And he did a study on Rosanne, the Beaucastel. On the colorization, the changes, the polyphenols and the polymers, how they develop, and they explain a little bit why, especially Rosanne wines, go in a kind of done phase that you think, okay, they're dead meat, and then they jump out again after a period. There's a nice graphic in the book, so whenever you have a chance or you have a sneak online or whatever, have a look.
So I think we can move to the 2012. It's 80% Roussanne, 20% Claret with malolactic fermentation, and we have all the claret who are aged in new oak and we do the malolactic fermentation, so 80% aged in new oak. The vintage 2012 was like with a very dry spring, a normal blooming, a cool summer. I just make a few things about the vintage. And we were lucky because we get a good amount of rain, so I think it's a great vintage for white because the good freshness and not overripe, like it can be sometime in Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Yeah, that's sometimes the remark, especially people who are not used to more vital whites. I mean whites, they tend to say it's different, and then they try to compare with Chardonnay, and that's not Chardonnay, and then Sauvignon Blanc, it's not at all Sauvignon Blanc, and then you get the Vermentino, so it's a kind of a blend that's a little unusual. People never drunk, so they cannot place it. The roundness, especially, what I used to say, it lacks acidity, and I always trigger people do not tell what it lacks, tell it what it tells you, you know? And then they're talking about elegancy, silkiness. So the wine has to offer you something. There's a problem, as Florent said, especially in specific vintages, to get the freshness, keep the fresh. But still, it's a monovarietal wine, so it can taste different. But still, the interesting thing is the grape variety, when they are blended, and in a way you get best out of the wines from the terroir, and you can have an amazing profile.
Yeah, so the Cuvée Barberini, it's an homage to my ancestor. Because my family was, at the beginning, from Italy. It's a long story, but I try to make it short. During the 16th century, the family Barberini was quite a powerful and a big family from Italy, and they were involved in politics, religion, in Rome. And one get Pope, Urban VIII. And why I tell you that is because this linked to the fact we arrive in Châteauneuf. So Urban VIII, he used to, like we do in politics now, when you have a new president, he put all his friends at good place, so he put all the family Barberini in good place in Rome, but sadly he died short time after, and the new Pope doesn't like at all the family Barberini and want to get rid of their influence and ask them to move far from Rome. And some of them arrive in France, one part in Paris and one part in Malocène. Malocène is a very small village close to the Mont Ventoux, and they start a little business of alchemists. And they was nearly burned, but they survived, you know, and they moved to Châteauneuf and bought the first land in Châteauneuf. And since this time, the winery is in my family, so we choose to create this Cuvée Barberini as an homage to them.
There's an expression, they say, it's a funny one that his uncle has told me this a few times. He says, what the barbarians didn't destroy Rome, the Barbarinis did.
They were not so nice.
I think it's funny.
I'm far better. No.
You are a barbarian.
Maybe, yeah. Yes, all done, naturally done. And no racking and no steering. I don't really want to steer the lee because the Roussanne are already big, so I keep the lees, and I'm doing the malolactic, so I think if I'm steering the lees, they will be like too heavy. So I just keep the leaf to maintain this reduction, you know, to avoid oxidation in the barrel, but I don't want really to feed the wine too much. Okay, so we can, I think we can go through the 78. Yeah, it is, sorry. So there is something interesting about 78. it's a very special vintage in the art of the Châteauneuf-du-Pape producer, because I think that was a great vintage, but very difficult at the same time. I was not born, so it's what I've heard about it. We just get a very, very cold winter, with a lot of snow, so a difficult time for the wine grower. But just after, we just get the most beautiful spring and summer. So because of the cold winter, the vegetation was safe. You doesn't have to spray, not high pressure for the mildew and the odium. So it was quite a pretty summer and spring. But during the harvest, they get 3 storms. So they get a huge amount of rain, they get wind. But because of the quality of the grapes, they were so healthy. They arrived to do one of the best vintage of maybe the last 30 years. You can ask to every vigneron in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, 78 is like one of the great vintage. And I'm lucky we still have a good amount of them at the winery. So it's why I decided to make you try this vintage. But it's also because I did some analysis on the 78, and there was 13.7 degrees of alcohol, so it's very low. pH are quite similar to what we have now, so it's quite curious to feel you can produce such a great wine with great Grenache and ripe at 13.7. We will dream about that now. Like now we are ripe around 16 degrees. So for the winemaking on this wine, that was 100% maceration carbonic, of course. 100% aged in old food, like very traditional.
It's 78 was my. You said something yesterday about what wine hit you. That was one of the wines that hit me. So I went to France for the first time in '84. That's old, man. Anyway, 78s were. So this was pre-Partner, before Partner put Chateauneuf back on the map, or however you want to look at it. So, you could get 78s at almost any winery already in '84. Even Beaucastel. So I went into Beaucastel, I'm like, 78? Oh yeah, $15 a bottle, bring it on. So I was having a good time drinking the 78s for quite a while. And I actually really, really enjoy this wine you guys made, especially how strange that it's a carbonic maceration, and you get all the complexities of the terroir that comes through, of the stems that are still coming through, and when you get those notes of like your bouquet garni. Who cooks here? Bouquet garni or your bouquet garni. But does everybody know what a bouquet garni is? That's the question. It's a little kind of thyme, rosemary, and a bay leaf with a rubber band or a little piece of thread, and you stick it in your soup, and it's your base for your soup, right? So you can feel those aromas from the plants that surround the vines. I really, really love this wine. We often get these notes on, as I said before, on difficult vintages, but you also get them back when they get really old. And that's what I love about these older Chateauneufs. They don't fall apart. They start singing a different song to you later on in life.
I think it's amazing that you get from carbonic maceration, you can produce such a wine. And maybe this inspires some winemaker to switch to. I don't know. I'm just kidding, because it's also a vintage, you need to take everything in context. But for me, it's an amazing wine. Acidity. Still, the tertiary flavors are seductive, spicy, hedonistic. Everything is there.
I think we could go through the 98.
Just thank you so much for that 78.
That was not me, so I say thank you to my grandfather. So 98, I was born, so I was not involved yet in the winery. I just looking at the blend, so I did a 10% Senso, 10 Syrah, and 10 Mourvèdre, and 70% water. You know? I think that was we missed the 70% of Grenache. So that was a very cool and sunny, dry vintage. So easy for the wine grower. And we haven't changed. So macération carbonique, we are keep going on that. And we will start to do pump over, so work a little bit harder. Still full bunch, but we destroy all the old food, so it was 100% aged in concrete.
There's so much sucrosité or sweetness on this wine. This is when I like to drink, in general, I like to drink my Chateauneufs when I've got 15 to 20 years of age. This wine is singing to me. A lot of sweetness, a lot of fruit, and the color. You see how dark the color is for a wine that's made in this style? It's very impressive.
98 is Florent, a very hot vintage. And production-wise, similar to 2007, high production. So interesting. The other thing is that Mourvèdre did not that valuable vintage. It was a perfect Grenache vintage. So, for example, Beaucastel, they switch. They normally use 40%, 30% Grenache in the Hommage à Paris, and 50% Mourvèdre, so they changed, and actually in 98 close to 70%, 60-70% Grenache in a wine. So it's always a compromise vintage for every grape variety. It's not possible, but it's one when you get full Grenache, it's a perfect vintage.
So I also do some analysis on this wine. So alcohol was 13.5, pH 3.6, volatile acidity 0.5. It's not that bad for a wine of this age. And for me, I'm really surprised I discovered that with you. I knew we were used to do great wine with lower alcohol, but I'm really surprised to see some of our best vintage are under 14. I will be glad that it can happen again, but I'm not sure because with the dry farming and the weather we get now, we have some big difficulty to go less than 15. The flower in my vineyard. So now we move to 2004. So we start in 99 to do some cuvée, because previously we were just making like one single wine, like most of the Châteauneuf du Pape producer. But we went through this new trend to make cuvée and get some score. We all need to sell wine. So the reserve, it's the second cuvée we create, and it's a selection of old vine of Grenache, some of the oldest we get, around 100 years, on the sand with Syrah and Mourvèdre with a 40%, that was 25% aged in new oak and the rest in stainless steel. If you want a few details on the winemaking, so we did between 22 and 25 days of winemaking process. 22 was for the Syrah and 29 for the Grenache, and between 11 to 14 délestage. So it's quite a lot, but we are used to work this way. We do a délestage, so we extract some structure, and we use a turbo piger, so we stir a little bit the lees, so we get back on something with more roundness. And we do another délestage, and we go step by step this way, even when the alcoholic fermentation is done. So it's not we didn't make like 5 délestages by day, we make 11 délestages on 29 days. So one every 2 days.
I think it's Lançon, but you know, one of the first time I came to Châteauneuf, I had a discussion with Julien Moreau. And Julien is still here, or is he smoking? So we can talk, we can gossip. No, you know, I had some doubts about, you know, the content of Syrah and next to Grenache. I thought sometimes they fight each other in Châteauneuf. So he made a fiancé, a 50-50. So I said, no, maybe it's not like, you know, perfect marriage. So maybe it shouldn't happen in the future. But I'm amazed, you know, how they turn out afterwards. A couple of years, they turn out to have a perfect marriage. Then I tasted the ones, the Bambarinis and the Secrets, and I said, wow, yes, Grenache and Syrah can have something together and can actually act synergetic.
Yeah, very, very sustainable. For me, to be true, if you look at the Grenache, a lot of tannins, low color, easy to oxidate. You have the Syrah, deep color, a lot of fruit, soft tannins. If you arrive to match this point where you balance the two opposite characters, so it's why I try to do on the reserve since 2007 now, so I don't use any more Mourvèdre, because I really want to be on this point when you just match the two opposite and you arrive to create a wine, I think, very stable.
I think Syrah is one of those grapes that Chateauneuf du Pape not everybody has figured it out. You know, they pretty much all have Grenache, under the belt, but not everybody masters their Syrah. It's very hot, and sometimes it's too hot. Depending on the harvest, you get some funky Syrah, and I think what you guys are doing are very good. But it's knowing how to work your vines and how to vinify. It's not an easy grape.
I think the problem that people make, I made a mistake myself to compare with Northern Rhone. Syrah from Northern Rhone is totally different.
Yes.
Totally different profile, so you never can compare. And Syrah and Châteauneuf, you know, there are wine growers who do not believe in Syrah in Châteauneuf, like Henri Benoit. He doesn't want any Syrah. He thinks it's too hot. But okay, I think this proves it works.
So I really like this picture because it's like one of my favorite places in the winery. It's a 120-year-old vineyard of Grenache. And when I look at this picture, I really think that I have a great idea to do a single vineyard of Grenache, because you know, Grenache need to be in a great place with old wine to produce like a single vineyard with only Grenache. So I decided in 2005, when I really start my winemaking study, to be true, to realize we just have this beautiful vineyard and I have to do something with that. So I create a special cuvée, Cornelia Constanza, and we are going to try this cuvée. But I'm also thinking about something else. I haven't talked about that because I was stressed at the beginning. But there is a big issue for all of us, I think, and nobody talk about that. It's all those old wines. They get a genetic diversity, and we are all going to lose that if we don't, you know, manage to do massal selection, to select some of those old wine and to replant it. Because I mean, we all use all around the world nearly the same clone. I know some of you, and I do also use massal selection, but we are very few people who do that. And when all the old wine will disappear, because maybe in 50 years we'll have to change this vineyard because the yielding will be too low, we will lose this biodiversity. And I think in Châteauneuf I want to make a project and start, you know, like a conservatory to identify, you know, in the old vineyards the best Grenache and follow them and try to replant them. Because I think it's part of the terroir. Because we miss something if we just say the terroir is where the vine grows. It's also, this vine, it's a work of my grandfather, my grand-grandfather. Because at that time you never go to buy some vine at the nursery, you just do it yourself. So he was selected from previous vineyard we own, And it's a part of his work I was losing, and I really realized that. So since 5 years now, I do my own massal selection, so I have 80 of those beautiful vines who are selected, and every year I'm grafted them to establish my new vineyard. We can go. So that's Cornelia Costanza, or before, to wait for the question, who is Cornelia Costanza? It's the last princess of the family Barberini. Yeah, it was princess. Far ago, but she was princess, and she get engaged with the family Corona, so all the palazzo and all the nice things we were owning in Italy go to the Corona family. It's a shame, but she did it. So on this wine, so it's 100% old vine of Grenache, the vineyard you see in the previous photo. And what I'm trying to do is to do as simple as possible. I really want to show the vintage. So I always say I'm a proud wine grower, but a shy winemaker. I don't really like to put my print on the wine. I really prefer to show the work I've done in the vineyard. So it's aged in concrete tank with just 10% aged in new oak. And if we look at the level of alcohol on this one, it's more 16 than 13.4 like in the 98.
So there's an interesting example we were talking about this morning about a specific plot, vineyard. In this case, a plot with old vines, 80, 90 year old, and it has its own expression. And it produces a number of bottles that you can actually market. And especially in 2005 vintage has a very strong tannic structure. It helps to support to age the wine very. It's 10 years old.
Well, that's what the hot and dry vintage. So we get a big structure.
05 was a vintage that, I think we want to put it up with some of the best, but I find that it's also kind of the vintage that was, for a long time I thought that 05 was a replica of the 95 vintage. And the 95 vintage, which was probably one of the most painful vintages for all of us sommeliers in France. So you buy the 95, it would close down really quick, went into that hibernation mode for freaking ever. And I was really nervous about 2 months ago for the Printemps de Châteauneuf. We did a a horizontal on 05, and it was beautiful to see that they finally came out of their cave, as you will say. It was really neat to see these 05s start to come around. So it's a really great vintage, but it's coming out of that funky phase, that closed down phase. Yes?
What was the last year that you did carbonic maceration?
So it was around 88, 87, 88, we stopped the maceration carbonic.
What was the yield of...
Oh, the yield is, I don't want to talk about that. It's like 20, it's quite a healthy old vineyard, so we get around 20 hectoliter, so it's great.
That makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned twice now these wines shutting down, and I've been drinking Chateau for 30 years. Anybody that loves them, there's a discussion at some point in time about the fact that they close up and time range with age. And as much as there might be an agreement that happens, does anybody know why? And at a molecular level, why these wines have a proclivity to do that more than Cabernet or Bordeaux? We talked about it, but I've never heard anybody explain why it happens and what's happening
I'm afraid you never get an answer to that question. No, I mean shutting down. I think it's less a problem for Chateauneuf wines in general. So? No, you were talking about the red wines, eh?
Well, both
Yeah.
red and whites. We've been talking about how.
I think the reds behave different than the whites. For me, in general, the reds can also go in the dump phase, but far from as deep as the whites go. And what, of course, what I always recommend is when you want to try a bottle, open the bottle and taste first. Is it appealing to you, and otherwise they can. And Chateauneuf in general opens up way more quickly than a closed cap. That's what I can assure you. And my experience, my nickname used to be Bordeaux Harry. I have many experiences with Bordeaux that were closed, and you could decant for 3, 6, 12 hours when you really hit a Bordeaux wine that's really shut. It's shut for a long time. And that's totally different for a Chateauneuf. Chateauneuf goes less deep. If it shuts down, it comes up faster. It has a shorter wavelength. That's my experience.
Yeah, and for the white Chateauneuf, we are used to say they are closed after 4 years, and they get back with more minerality after like 7, 9 years for the white. And it's why really I decided to do the malolactic fermentation, because I was really thinking that really can change the way the wine age. And I'm opening now some, not today, but often some like 2009, we should be really on the wrong spot, or 2010 should be really close. And I'm really thinking I have good answer to that. Malolactic fermentation, really avoid this bad period for the white Chateauneuf. Ask me why, I have not a clue, but it seems to work.
Yeah, I've not had a proper answer on why they closed down. But there's also, you guys, we've had the 07 twice. We've had the 07 Jeunesse, we had the 07 here. They weren't closed down. Normally that would be in that closed period. So they were smoking, but that was just the wonderful vintage. Maybe 9, big sunny vintage. The sunny vintages don't close down as much. It's really, it takes my head. I have no idea.
So I think we can move to 2012. So the Cuvée Barberini Red, it's a selection of old vine, but I was talking, we play with different terroirs at La Solitude, so it's a selection of old Grenache, Syrah and Mourvèdre. So it's a classic Chateauneuf blend, but with only terroir who come from the Gallier Roulé and clay. So it's a powerful, in my point of view, it's a powerful wine with a lot of structure, big tannins. So I make a bigger aging in oak than the tradition. So for the winemaking process, it's still 100% distem. So I've started like in 2014 to stop distilling a little bit, because for me the stem is part of the terroir and the quality of the vineyard. So I really think we have to keep some full punch, on the good vintage for the Grenache, but on this one it's 100% distem, and 24 to 25 days of fermentation winemaking process. We don't really do the same every year, but we always around 25 to 30 days. Sometimes we went up to 35, but it was too much for us. So you see, we do like 8-10 délestage. We do most of the time more délestage on the Grenache than on the Syrah. We have started to use natural yeast, because previously we were just using industrial yeast, but I think also it's part of the terroir to use the yeast you find in your winery. And 50% is aged in stainless steel and 50% is aged in oak. So for the Grenache it's mostly demi-muit and foudre, Syrah small barrel, new, and Mourvèdre the same.
Something I want to throw in real quick. Julien Baron yesterday was talking about there's a lot of people that are destemming. I mean, a lot of people are leaving the stems. And there's a lot of people, like maybe a lot of his friends are leaving some stems. But back in the day, seriously, I've been there over 30 years. Turn the clock back 25 years ago, it was over 90% of the wineries kept their stems. It was all cluster. And just moved, just a big switch. They call it the Parker.
Yeah, from the 78 to the 98, they are all full bunch.
Yeah, you guys were a whole cluster until what, 98?
Yeah.
Right. So that was around 95. I want to say 95 to 2000 when everyone started to switch over. Total change in winemaking. Why? Because you want to drink your wines younger. Who's got a cellar? Who wants to hang on to a Chateau de Pop for 10 years before you drink it, et cetera, et cetera. So it was kind of a victim of circumstance. It happened the way it happened, but the thing is you kind of took a little bit of the soul away. You know, I put it in like layman's terms. There's something missing a little bit, and I think it's nice to hear that you want to throw some stems back in. There's a lot of winemakers, maybe 20%, 30%, 40% stems. So there's this kind of like backtrack to old school again. I love it. I mean, maybe I'm just weird and geeky, but I think it's a nice way to do it, and it keeps a little bit of the vineyard and the style of Chateauneuf pure to itself. But I just wanted to throw that in.
The timing for the Syrah and the Grenache, we always start by the Syrah, and like there is 1 week between Syrah and the vineyard of Grenache. And if you want to know the timing, we always start by the Roussanne. There are the grape variety in my winery who are already like beginning of September. We go to the Syrah, Mourvèdre, Syrah Grenache, and like 2 weeks after we finish the Grenache, we have the Mourvèdre who are ripe. So it's why we don't do any co-fermentation at the moment, because we have quite a long time between the ripening of the different grape variety. And the way I'm working, because all the vineyard is around and I'm able to ferment all my vineyard in one row, I don't need to use 2 times the tank. I use some big working teams, 60 people who work in the vineyard. When it's ripe, we pick everything in 2 days, we stop, we restart one week after. It's the way we work.
Bravo.
So I just want to say thank you again to Sacha to invite me here.